What if I told you a simple jersey change just flipped the entire direction of a franchise? At first glance, it looks like nothing, just a number switch. Something fans see every season and forget within days. But this time, it's different. When Shedeur Sanders decided to go back to wearing number 2, it didn't just spark hype. It raised serious questions about what's really happening behind the scenes in Cleveland. Because here's the thing, this wasn't random. For months, there's been quiet tension surrounding his arrival. Questions about his draft position, doubts about his role, even whispers about whether the organization truly believed in him. And now, suddenly, this move appears, perfect timing, maximum attention, and a message that feels anything but accidental. Some fans think it's just branding, others believe it's a statement. A reset, a warning, or maybe even a signal that something inside the Browns organization has already shifted. And when you start connecting the dots, the off-season work, the comments from ownership, the growing media buzz, it begins to look like this isn't about a jersey at all. It's about identity. It's about control. And most importantly, it might be the first sign that the story everyone thought they understood is about to change completely. Everyone saw the headline, but almost nobody understood what it actually meant. When Shedeur Sanders switched back to wearing number 2, the reaction was instant and mostly dismissive. Fans brushed it off as a style choice. Analysts called it branding. Some even joked it was just about selling more jerseys. And on the surface, that makes sense. Players change numbers all the time. It's normal, it's forgettable. But this one didn't feel normal. Because if you've been paying attention, this moment was quietly building for months. Number 2 isn't just any number for Shedeur. It's the identity he built his name on, dating back to his rise at Jackson State and later dominating at Colorado. It represents confidence, control, and a version of himself that never second-guessed anything. So when he arrived in Cleveland and didn't wear it, that stood out more than people realized. At the time, it looked like a small compromise, a rookie adjusting, a player fitting into the system. But now it looks different. Now it feels like he's taking something back. And that's where things start to get interesting. Because this change didn't happen in a vacuum. It comes after months of speculation, pressure, and questions about his place in the organization. Reports, debates, and constant noise about whether he truly had the backing of the team, whether he was just another name or the guy. And suddenly, this move drops. Perfect timing, maximum attention, and a message that doesn't need words. Some fans believe this is just a personal decision, but others are starting to read between the lines. They think this is symbolic, a quiet way of saying that things have shifted behind closed doors, that the version of Shedeur we're about to see isn't the one who walked into Cleveland uncertain, but the one who built his reputation before he got there. And if that's true, then this jersey change might be the first real sign of something bigger. Because sometimes, the smallest moves tell the loudest stories. And what happens next might prove that this wasn't just a number change at all. Draft night was supposed to be the moment everything changed for Shedeur Sanders, but instead, it became the moment everything shifted. Coming into the draft, the expectations were loud. Some analysts projected him as a top pick. Others believed he had the talent, the pedigree, and the confidence to go early without question. The buzz was there, the spotlight was ready, and for a player who had built his name under constant attention, it felt like the perfect setup. But then, nothing happened. Round after round passed, and his name wasn't called. At first, it felt like a delay. Then it started to feel confusing, and eventually, it turned into something much bigger, a moment that fans, media, and even insiders couldn't fully explain. Because when a player with that level of production and visibility keeps sliding, people start asking questions. And that's exactly what happened. Some reports claimed teams were unsure about how he would fit into certain systems. Others suggested concerns about his personality, his confidence, or even the spotlight that comes with his last name. But here fully confirmed. It was all speculation, noise building in real time as the draft continued to unfold. And for him, that moment wasn't just about football. It was personal. Because this wasn't just any prospect waiting to hear his name. This was someone who had carried expectations his entire career. Someone who had performed under pressure, delivered in big moments, and still found himself watching others get opportunities first. You can imagine what that does mentally. The questions start creeping in. Did teams really believe in him? Was the narrative bigger than the talent? Was this about performance or perception? And by the time he finally landed in Cleveland, the story had already been written, at least in the eyes of the public. But here, where it gets interesting. Moments like that don't just disappear. They stay with players, they fuel them, they reshape how they approach everything that comes next. And many fans believe that draft night didn't break him, it changed him. Because what looked like a setback on the outside might have been the exact spark he needed internally. And if that's true, then everything we're seeing now, from the mindset shift to the jersey change, might trace back to that one night where everything didn't go as planned. But what happened after he got to Cleveland? That's where the real story begins. When Shedeur Sanders finally arrived in Cleveland, most people assumed the hard part was over. But in reality, that's where a different kind of pressure began. Because stepping into an NFL locker room isn't just about talent, it's about acceptance. And from the outside, everything looked fine. Smiles, interviews, media appearances, the usual rookie welcome. But behind that surface, there were subtle signs that things weren't as smooth as they seemed. Some fans started to notice it first. The way conversations around him felt divided. The way certain media narratives kept questioning him before he even had a real opportunity. And more importantly, the way expectations didn't match the treatment. For a player with his resume, his visibility, and his confidence, the energy around him felt different. Not outright rejection, but not full belief either. And that's a strange place to be. Because there's a big difference between being invited somewhere and being fully wanted. Reports and discussions began hinting at that gap. Nothing confirmed, nothing official, but enough for people to start connecting dots. Some suggested the organization was still figuring him out. Others believed there were internal questions about fit, leadership, or direction. Again, none of it clearly proven, but the conversation kept growing. And in situations like that, perception becomes reality. Imagine walking into a building where you're expected to prove everything, while others are already assumed to belong. Every throw, every practice rep, every move gets watched a little closer, judged a little faster, questioned a little louder. That kind of environment doesn't just test your ability, it tests your identity. And for someone like Shedeur, whose game has always been built on confidence and control, that shift matters. Because now, it's not just about playing football. It's about holding onto who you are while everything around you tries to redefine it. Some fans believe that period in Cleveland forced him to adjust, not his talent, but his approach, to stay patient, to stay locked in, to prove himself without changing what made him successful in the first place. And that's where things start to come full circle. Because when you look at everything happening now, the mindset, the energy, the decisions, it doesn't feel like someone trying to fit in anymore. It feels like someone taking that space back. And if that's true, then what we're seeing now might not be a reaction. It might be the beginning of something much bigger. That's when the number stopped being just a number. When Shedeur Sanders went back to wearing number 2, it didn't just feel like a preference, it felt intentional. Because if you look at his journey, that number represents something very specific. It's the version of him that played free, the version that didn't hesitate, the version that walked onto the field already knowing he belonged. And for a while, that version seemed like it was being tested. Think about everything that happened leading up to this. The draft slide, the questions, the constant noise around his name, then stepping into a new system where nothing is guaranteed and everything has to be re-earned. That kind of environment can slowly pull a player away from what made them special in the first place. Not physically, but mentally. And that's where this change hits differently. Because some fans believe this isn't about going backwards, it's about resetting, a return to identity, a way of saying, I'm not adjusting to fit expectations anymore, I'm going back to what made me who I am. There's even been buzz online where people are reading deeper into it. Some say the two represents a kind of rebirth, a player who went through pressure, criticism, and doubt, and came out sharper on the other side. Others frame it as symbolic, like leaving behind everything that tried to define him and stepping back into his own narrative. Now, is all of that officially confirmed? No. But the timing makes it hard to ignore. Because this didn't happen randomly in the off-season. It came after months of development, after visible changes in his work ethic, his physical presence, and the way people inside the organization started talking about him. It came after signs that he was putting in the work behind the scenes, staying locked in while the outside world kept debating his future. And then this move. Simple on the surface, loud underneath. Because athletes don't just change numbers without meaning, especially not ones tied this closely to their identity, and especially not after going through everything he's gone through in such a short time. So when you see that number 2 now, it's not just a throwback. It might be a signal that the version of him people questioned is gone, and the version that built the hype in the first place is back. And if that's true, then this isn't just a personal decision. It's a warning. And then, the biggest clue didn't come from the field at all. It came from the top. When Jimmy Haslam spoke about Shedeur Sanders, most people heard a standard owner comment. The usual tone, positive, supportive, nothing out of the ordinary. But if you really listen closely, there was something different about what he said, and more importantly, how he said it. He didn't just mention talent. He pointed out dedication. He talked about seeing Shedeur in the building consistently, about him being there early, about putting in the kind of work that most rookies struggle to fully understand at the NFL level. And on the surface, that sounds like basic praise. But in the NFL, owners don't usually go out of their way to highlight that unless they're trying to send a message. And that's where things start to shift. Because this wasn't just about effort, it was about validation. For months, there had been questions surrounding Shedeur. Was he focused enough? Was he too flashy? Did he really have that next-level commitment? Those narratives didn't always come from confirmed sources, but they were loud enough to stick. And whether fair or not, they followed him into Cleveland. So when the owner himself steps in and emphasizes work ethic, that's not random. That's correction. Some fans believe this was the organization quietly pushing back against those doubts. Not with headlines, not with bold declarations, but with subtle messaging that reframes the entire conversation. Instead of questioning his commitment, now the focus becomes his discipline. Instead of doubting his preparation, now it's being highlighted at the highest level. And timing matters here. Because this statement didn't come during the draft. It didn't come when expectations were uncertain. It came after he had time to be in the building, after people inside the organization had seen him up close, and after those early narratives had already started forming publicly. Which raises a bigger question. Why say it now? Some believe it's simple honesty. Others think it's something more strategic. A signal that the organization is starting to shift how they present him, not just internally, but to the public. Because in the NFL, perception is powerful. And when ownership speaks, it shapes that perception instantly. So while it may have sounded like a routine comment, it carried weight. Because if the owner is going out of his way to highlight your work, your growth, and your presence, that usually means you're not just another name on the roster. It means you're part of the plan. And if that's true, then everything we're seeing, from the jersey change to the growing complex situation, a lot of people expected clarity, a direct answer, something that would settle the conversation once and for all. But instead, what they got was the opposite: careful words, controlled responses, and just enough ambiguity to keep everyone guessing. And that's not accidental, because in situations like this, what isn't said can matter just as much as what is. Barry didn't come out and name a starter. He didn't shut anything down either. He leaned into the idea of competition, said the right things, gave the kind of answer you're supposed to give publicly, but if you listen closely, it felt more like management than uncertainty. Like the decision might already be forming, just not ready to be announced. And that's where the power dynamics come into play. Because from the outside, it still looks like an open battle. Multiple quarterbacks, equal opportunity, everyone fighting for the job. But behind the scenes, some believe the tone is already shifting. The messaging from ownership, the subtle support, the way certain narratives are being corrected, it all starts to point in one direction. Not officially, not confirmed, but noticeable. There's even been speculation that the organization is being extremely careful with how they handle this. Because the moment you publicly lean too far one way, the backlash comes instantly. If you name a young quarterback too early, critics say he didn't earn it. If you hesitate, they say you don't believe in him. So what do teams do? They play it neutral while moving strategically underneath. And that's exactly what this feels like. Because while the public hears competition, the signals behind the scenes are starting to stack up. The work ethic being highlighted, the presence in the building, the quiet shifts in narrative, even the timing of certain comments, it all builds a picture without ever fully confirming it. And that creates tension. Because fans are split. Some believe it's wide open. Others are convinced the direction is already decided. And the truth, it might be somewhere in the middle, but leaning more than people realize. That's how organizations operate when the stakes are high. They don't rush the announcement. They shape the story first. So while it may look like nothing has been decided yet, the real question is, what if it already has? And if that's the case, then everything we're seeing right now isn't confusion. It's strategy. And this is where the story really splits in two. Because when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, there isn't just one narrative. There are two completely different ones happening at the same time. On one side, you've got the critics. These are the voices that have questioned him from the start. They talk about hype, about spotlight, about whether his confidence crosses into something else. Some reports have suggested concerns about attitude or distractions, while others frame him as a player who hasn't fully proven it, yet at the NFL level. And to be fair, that's not unusual for a young quarterback stepping into this kind of pressure. But here, where it gets interesting. Because on the other side, you've got a completely different conversation. You've got fans, and even some insiders, pointing to his work ethic, his presence in the facility, and the way he's handled everything thrown at him so far. They see someone who's been consistent, focused, and quietly putting in the work while the noise builds around him. They don't see distraction, they see discipline. So now you've got two narratives moving at the same time. One questioning, one supporting, and neither one is fully going away. That's what creates the tension. Because in today's sports world, perception spreads faster than reality. One clip, one headline, one opinion can shape how people view a player before they've even seen the full picture. And with someone like Shedeur, who already carries attention because of his name and style, that effect gets amplified even more. There's also been growing talk online suggesting that some of the criticism might be overblown, that certain narratives are built more on expectation than actual performance. But again, that's speculation. It's part of the conversation, not a confirmed truth. Still, it raises a question. Why is the reaction to him so divided? Because usually, when a player is clearly one thing or another, the narrative settles. But in this case, it hasn't. It keeps pulling in both directions, and that tells you something deeper is going on. It's not just about football anymore. It's about identity, perception, and control of the story. And the reality is, whichever narrative wins, shapes everything that comes next. Because if he succeeds, the story flips instantly. The same voices that question him start saying they always saw the potential. And if he struggles, the critics feel validated. That's how this works. But right now, in this moment, both sides are still fighting for control of the narrative. And that's what makes this situation so unpredictable. Because the next chapter won't just decide his future. It's going to decide which story was real all along. And this is where everything connects, because this story was never just about football. It's about positioning. Because when you look at what's happening around Shedeur Sanders right now, it starts to feel bigger than just a roster decision. The jersey change, the growing attention, the timing of media coverage, the subtle shift in how he's being talked about, it all points towards something else happening in the background. Momentum. And in today's NFL, momentum isn't just built on performance, it's built on visibility. Think about it, every move he makes is being amplified. Every update becomes a headline. Every small detail turns into a talking point. That doesn't happen by accident. Whether intentional or not, there's a spotlight forming around him, and it's getting brighter at a very specific time. Some fans believe this is just organic hype. A talented player with a big personality naturally drawing attention, but others think it's more strategic. They believe the league, and possibly the organization, is starting to recognize his marketability just as much as his ability. Because let's be real, star quarterbacks don't just impact the field, they drive the entire business side of the league. Jersey sales spike, social media engagement explodes, national broadcasts start paying closer attention, and suddenly a player isn't just a competitor, they become a brand. And that's where things get interesting. Because the moment a player crosses into that territory, everything changes. The narrative shifts, the opportunities grow, and the expectations, they go through the roof. There's even been quiet speculation among fans that certain moments, like the jersey switch, aren't just personal decisions, but perfectly timed moves that fuel that momentum. Not confirmed, of course, but in a league where branding and timing matter this much, it's hard to completely ignore. And if that's true, then what we're seeing right now could be the early stages of something much bigger. Not just a quarterback trying to earn a role, but a player being positioned as one of the next faces of the league. Now, whether that actually happens will depend on one thing: performance. Because at the end of the day, the NFL doesn't hand out long-term hype. You either produce, or the spotlight fades just as fast as it came. But right now, the attention is building, the narrative is shifting, and the pieces are starting to line up. So when you look back at something as simple as a jersey change, it might not feel so small anymore. Because sometimes, the biggest stories don't start with a headline. They start with a signal. And this might have been one of the first. At the end of the day, this entire situation isn't really about a jersey number. It's about identity, control, and timing. What we're seeing with Shedeur Sanders feels like a turning point, not just in his personal journey, but in how he's being positioned within the league. The return to number 2 represents more than nostalgia. It signals a reset, a return to who he was before the noise, before the criticism, and before the doubt started to shape the narrative around him. It's a statement that he's no longer adjusting to fit expectations. Instead, he's stepping forward as himself, fully confident and unapologetic. But beyond the personal meaning, there's a bigger layer here. This move aligns perfectly with everything happening around him. The increased media attention, the growing fan engagement, and the subtle shift in how organizations and insiders are talking about him, it all points toward momentum building at the right time. And in today's NFL, momentum is everything. It can elevate a player from potential to centerpiece That's why this moment matters. Because when a player starts gaining traction both on and off the field, the narrative changes. Teams begin to see more than just talent, they see opportunity. They see leadership, marketability, and long-term value. And once that shift happens, the entire trajectory of a career can accelerate. At the same time, this isn't a guarantee of success. The spotlight that's beginning to form around him comes with pressure. Expectations will rise. Every performance will be analyzed more closely, and the margin for error becomes smaller. That's the reality of stepping into this kind of position. However, what makes this situation different is the mindset behind it. Everything suggests that this isn't just hype, it's preparation meeting opportunity. The work being put in behind the scenes, the commitment being recognized publicly, and now the symbolic return to a number that represents his roots. All of it points toward a player who understands the moment he's stepping into. So when people look at this and say, it's just a jersey change, they're missing the bigger picture. This is about reclaiming identity, building momentum, and signaling readiness for what's next. And if things continue on this path, this moment might be remembered as the point where everything started to shift, not just for him,